It's a way of building confidence. Si se puede. And we know how effective this mentality is when we see the first African-American president our country has ever seen. What was Obama's campaign slogan? Yes, we can. That's Spanish. Si se puede. You know how that makes me feel, knowing that our president, who was also a community organizer, is giving reverence to my grandfather and the work he did. This is huge. This is huge. And my grandfather never gave up. You know, for every 100 people that he talked to in the fields, every 100 farm workers he talked to, hey, we need to organize. We need better pay. We need better working conditions. We need to unionize. We have to protect each other. For every 100 people he talked to, he would find one person that wasn't scared. One person that wasn't scared to go out on strike. You know how many hours lost just recruiting people? He said, "Well, it can be done." People told him, "Don't you know migrant labor history in the U.S.? You can't organize farm workers. It's impossible. This is a labor force that constantly moves. It cannot be done." And he maintained, he said, "Well, it can be done." He maintained until his deathbed. You know, in the 60s, he was working on the grape campaign. In the 70s, it was lead. In the 80s, it was pesticides, bringing awareness to the public of the nasty chemicals that are on our fruits and veggies when we eat them, and the damage they can do to us and our kids. Up until his deathbed, when he died in Arizona. It was a tragic day. I remember it. I remember getting home from school, and my little sister saying, "Hey, come to Nana's house. We have to have a serious talk." And I'm laughing at my little sister because, you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm playing G.I. Joe. So we go over, and it's the first time I've seen my older brother cry. I walk in the door, and the whole family's in there. You have to imagine, 33 grandkids, 16 aunts and uncles, and it's crammed, 2-bedroom house. And I see my older brother crying. That's when I know something serious happened. That was the day we lost my grandfather. We lost a great man. But you know what? With events like today, his legacy, it lives on. Being here at the Gardner Community Center reminds me a lot of my childhood. You know, I grew up in the farm worker movement in La Paz. That's the UFW headquarters. Growing up there, you guys wouldn't believe it. There's just all kinds of trailers. Everybody was a volunteer. Everybody was equal. You had students, you had professors, you had lawyers, mechanics, professionals, and just volunteers in general. People that came out who believed in the struggle, who may not have ever even picked fruits or vegetables, never had to work in the field, but they sympathized with the struggle. They sympathized. Living in that community, running around with all the little kids, and not knowing that we grew up having activist mindset, reminds me a lot of things here today. Looking around, seeing the different age groups, knowing the history of how you guys got this community center, how you guys made it happen. Si se puede. It's inspiring. It really is inspiring. Also, at the same time, growing up in La Paz, you have a lot of different people, a lot of different volunteers with different backgrounds. And they all took different things from my grandfather's beliefs and his teachings. That's the same thing with us, with me. You know, I never worked in the field. I was lucky to not have to work in the field. But I was raised on the picket line. I was raised up in literature, knocking on doors, telling people to vote. At 8 years old, that's what I did. My dad drove me around, dropped me off, brought me home, meet me at the end of the block. A little kid, leave me alone, it's crazy. We're in Salinas, I don't know if you guys know Salinas, but you probably tell it. In our neighborhood. But it's funny, you know, like, people seem to respect my grandfather for what he did. So, my family, the influence my grandfather had on his grandkids, it can't be understated. You know, I know for me, you know, I graduated from UC Santa Cruz in the fall. I'm 28 years old, you know? Do the math. I took a pretty long break. I went to community college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I went, and during that time, I was working on different political campaigns. I worked in Salinas. I went to Arizona to work on the John Kerry campaign in 2004. Got sent to Colorado to organize the students, try to mobilize the vote. Because in my opinion, George W. Bush was evil and crazy. Couldn't get him in, now we had to do anything. Even if it meant leaving our communities to go empower other communities to mobilize the vote. I worked for the California Conservation Corps and AmeriCorps. Good. Went to the Backcountry Trails program. Lived out in the mountains for 6 months. Living in a small community of 15 people. You realize that microcosm of society. You realize the give and take. And how important it is to be receptive and respectful. And have a community-oriented mind. You put the community first. The other first. There's something bigger than yourself. Living out there, I always knew my grandfather's teachings. I always believed in them. But once it wasn't until I was in the mountains that it really solidified. You know, I'm backpacking around Yosemite and I see huge granite mansions that have been there for hundreds and thousands of years. These huge trees that have been there longer than 28 years. So you're out there and you meet, you realize how insignificant our lives are, how minuscule they are. We're just a spit in the wind, you know? Just a spit in the wind. My grandfather has this quote. It's my favorite quote that he ever gave. When we are really honest with ourselves, we must admit that our lives are all that really belong to us. So it's how we use our lives that determines what type of man we are. It is my deepest belief that only by giving life do we find life. And that the truest act of courage, the strongest act of manliness, is to sacrifice ourselves for others in a totally nonviolent struggle for justice. To be a man is to suffer for others. God help us to be men. We can't all organize farm workers. So I suggest the same thing. We find the teachings, we find the parts that we think are important. We go out in our community and we try to make a difference. We try to make a change using his example. Whether you want to be an attorney, a doctor, an architect, a fireman, it doesn't matter. I want to encourage everybody to take your education seriously and come back to the community from where you came and serve, because we are part of something bigger than ourselves. Once again, on behalf of the family, on behalf of my grandmother, I want to thank everybody for putting on this event. It's a real honor to be here, and have fun today. Thank you.